Hello, Namaskar. Today we're going to talk about this beautiful remedy, Rhus Tox, from Dr. Nash's Materia Medica. And we've been doing this series for a while now, wherein we discuss remedies from the Materia Medica of Dr. Nash, which is called as Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics by Dr. Nash. So we've been looking at many remedies from his Materia Medica, and presently we have been doing the trio of restlessness, which constitutes of three remedies, obviously: arsenic, aconite, and Rhus Tox. So we've already talked about the remedies arsenic, aconite. So today we're going to talk about the remedy Rhus Tox and complete the discussion on the trio of restlessness. So Dr. Nash actually groups certain remedies, certain remedies together, so that on the basis of actually the similarity that exists in those remedies, and he helps us differentiate those remedies and study about those remedies in very brief, only covering the very important aspects of that remedy, whichever he has himself seen in his practice and thought to be very important for that remedy. So in the same way, today we're going to learn about Rhus Tox from his own Materia Medica. These notes are all created from his Materia Medica only. So the topics are, actually he does not mention anything under topics. He just writes the things like lecture, like as if he's giving us a lecture para wise, but I have converted it into topics for I have actually named the paras, making a few headings out of it so that it's easy for us to learn, so that you know what to expect from this video. So we will first talk about the restlessness and the modalities of Rhus Tox, the fever of Rhus Tox, then the action on muscles, and then the action on skin. Alright, so let's start with the first topic, which is restlessness and modalities. Modalities is something that Dr. Nash always focuses on. So let's start with it. So as he talks about this, first he mentions that restlessness in Rhus Tox is due to. So he tells us the cause of restlessness that Rhus Tox feels. Okay, aconite and arsenic also have restlessness, Rhus Tox also has. That is why there is a trio. Then how is it different? What is the cause of this restlessness in Rhus Tox? So in Rhus Tox, this restlessness is due to aching, pain, and soreness. So there is a kind of pain that they have, soreness that they feel, okay, because of which they will feel restless. Plus there is internal uneasiness, which is purely nervous. So some kind of internal uneasiness gives rise to this restlessness along with the aching, pain, and soreness, and it is emulated by movement. This pain, this soreness is emulated by movement. So both these factors will finally lead to Rhus Tox being restless. Okay, then he mentions that the mental restlessness is less than in aconite and arsenic. So in Rhus Tox, Rhus Tox is actually not so restless mentally, is more physically restless, okay, but aconite and arsenic are much more mentally restless than Rhus Tox. Now in aconite, arsenic, and Rhus Tox, all three, the patient tosses and turns from side to side. That is the display of the restlessness that all these three remedies have. So they keep on moving. What is restlessness? If you like talk about it, or if you think about it in other languages like Hindi, Marathi, it will be aswasthata. Okay, they cannot just keep still. That is what it means, right? They want to keep on tossing, turning, moving from side to. So that is what. So all these three remedies are restless. So all these three remedies will keep moving. But in Rhus Tox, how it is different is that in Rhus Tox, restlessness ameliorates while the moving about, that is being restless, will ameliorate them, while with the other two it does not. So in aconite and in arsenic, they want to move, they will move, but even after moving, it will not make any change in their complaint. Okay, but in Rhus Tox, it actually relieves them of their complaint. Okay, it reduces their complaint. So there is amelioration with the restlessness, because of the restlessness. Okay, as a result of the restlessness. And in Rhus Tox, what happens is the more and longer he moves, the better he feels until he is exhausted. So what happens that he wants to move. So these all images are actually depicting the same thing, that these people are moving. Okay, these people are moving. So I could not think of anything else like how to depict movement. So that is what, okay, these people are playing or these are running. So that is how they're moving. So the more and longer this Rhus Tox patient moves, and why does he move? He moves because he feels that, and it actually does. His symptoms get ameliorated because of movement. The better he feels. Okay, the longer he moves, the better he feels. Now he will keep moving until he is exhausted. So that is what happens. Because it is giving him relief, he will not want to stop moving, and then he will move so much that it will finally leave him exhausted. Okay, so that was about the restlessness of this remedy. As in Rhus Tox, it is due to the aching pain and soreness along with the internal uneasiness, and both of these together give rise to the restlessness, and it is ameliorated by movement. Plus mental restlessness in these patients is not as much as you see in aconite and arsenic. In all these three remedies, the patient will be restless, and that will be shown to you, presented to you as the patient turns and tosses from side to side. But what is different in Rhus Tox is that in Rhus Tox, this restlessness, this movement will ameliorate them. Okay, this restlessness, this movement will ameliorate them, while in the other two it won't ameliorate. In Rhus Tox, the more and longer he moves, the better he feels until he is exhausted. So that's what we've learnt about the restlessness until now. Moving ahead, Dr. Nash says that as in bryonia, so in Rhus Tox, the leading characteristic is found in its modality. Okay, so we've done with the restlessness part, and now we're coming to the modality part. So in the modality part, he always mentions modalities in almost all the remedies, and he emphasizes a lot on modalities. He always thinks of them as leading characteristic, especially in remedies like bryonia, Rhus Tox. Both of them have very very characteristic modalities. So in bryonia, we have covered bryonia already. So from Dr. Nash's Materia Medica. So in bryonia, we've seen that there is aggravation from movement, right? They are always aggravated by movement and always better with rest. We've seen this. Bryonia may the rest amelioration is so characteristic that when they have headache, even opening eyes, moving the eyes here and there, that is, your eyeballs, movement of your eyeballs will also aggravate their headache. So that is the amount of aggravation from movement that bryonia has. Even the movement of eyes in headache will give rise to aggravation, or give rise to more pain. Okay, so that is the sensitivity. See, that is the amount of little also movement is aggravating there. That is how characteristic the symptom is. But in Rhus Tox, it is completely opposite. So in bryonia, there is aggravation from movement and amelioration from rest. But in Rhus Tox, it's completely opposite, as we've just seen, that they will feel better by moving. They will get relief when they move. So they want to move. They want to keep moving. They want to keep, because it will relieve them. So they will keep moving until they're exhausted. And there is aggravation from rest. So when they are lying at their home, in a comfortable couch, or sofa, or some place, they're comfortable, very nice, but now they are resting, and that will give rise to more that will aggravate their complaints, that will give rise to more pain. So they will not be happy resting like bryonia. Rhus Tox doesn't want to rest, relax. They want to move. They want to keep moving. Okay, so that is what is there in Rhus Tox, exactly opposite of bryonia. Now, we see that in acutes, that is for example, in fevers. So in acutes, constant movement seems to be the patient's only relief. So for Rhus Tox, you see that if they come up with any acute condition, if they come up with cold and cough, or maybe nausea, vomiting, food poisoning, or anything of that sort which is acute, okay, and they present with fever, there may not be fever also, but there's constant movement that seems to be the patient's only relief in those conditions. Okay, whereas in chronic, like for example rheumatism, joint pain, okay, so in chronic complaints, there is aggravation on beginning to move and accumulation on continued motion. So now what does this mean? So aggravation on beginning to move means what? Suppose now this patient is resting over here, okay, and he has all those pains here and there. Maybe if we take a patient of rheumatism for example, then this patient has some joint pains. Suppose he has pain in his knee as he is resting over here. So what he does is like he thinks that no, this is not good, I want to move, because he has this internal uneasiness, right? Along with that there is this aching pain in his knee, so he feels that no, I need to move and only then I will feel better. So what he does is he gets up and he starts to walk. Now when he starts to walk, exactly when he starts, that is the beginning, for a few seconds, for a few minutes, in the beginning he will get his pain will get aggravated, so it will increase to what it was than when he was resting. So already when he was resting the pain was too much. Now as he starts to walk, because he thinks that walking will help him, but as he starts in the first beginning phase, his pain will increase even more. Okay, but on continued motion, that is when he keeps walking, even if it's paining in the beginning, if he continues walking, dheere dheere, eventually the pain will go off. Okay, it will subside, it will decrease, it will ameliorate. So there is amelioration on continued motion and aggravation on beginning to move. This is these two, these all things are very 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 characteristic of Rhus tox, these modalities. Okay, and aggravation in rest, though both chronic and acute may there will be aggravation from rest only. He cannot lie for long, aching comes, must move even if it hurts him at first. So he has done this for one time. Now he knows that whenever I have some pain in my knees or in my joints, if I start to walk, which I know eventually will help me, at first I will get a lot of pain, but still that patient will be ready to face the pain, because he knows that after that little time of pain he will be relieved of it. Okay, because he will continue walking. So that's what. Okay, so aggravation from rest is there, he cannot lie for long, and if he aching comes, must move even if it hurts him at first. Okay, so now the pains causing restlessness of Rhus tox are not so agonizing as in so now Dr. Nash actually compares it very very beautifully with those two remedies, that is arsenic and aconite. So what he says is that the pain which causes the restlessness, as we've seen in the first section only, that the pains cause restlessness, the internal uneasiness causes restlessness. So the pains which cause restlessness in Rhus tox are not so agonizing as in aconite and arsenic. Now I have told you when we were discussing about aconite, Dr. Nash mentions this, that aconite comes under, aconite is a pain remedy. So extreme pain is there in aconite, and aconite has this, actually forms a trio with chamomilla and coffea for pain. Okay, so trio of pain, I hope you remember. So the trio of pain consists of the remedy aconite, of the remedy chamomilla, and of the remedy coffea. These three have maximum pain. That is what Dr. Nash says. Okay, so aconite has agonizing kind of pain. Also arsenic has agonizing kind, but pains of Rhus tox are not that they are aching dull kind of pains. They are not like agonizing kind of pains. Okay, and nor is the prostration so great as in arsenic. So arsenic, we've seen in arsenic there is extreme prostration. They are just they are very very prostrated, they are very fatigued, they are very tired, very exhausted. That is what is there in arsenic. It is a characteristic symptom of arsenic. But here in Rhus tox, there is no prostration, as we see in arsenic. Okay, nor the excitement so great as in aconite. So when we were discussing aconite, we have compared it with belladonna. We have seen the congestion that this remedy has. We have seen the fright that this remedy has. The intense emotions that this remedy has. So there is excitement at physical and at mental level. So at circulation level also there is excitement. At mental level also there is excitement in aconite. But in Rhus tox it's not so. Okay, not the excitement. So see how beautifully he compares the remedies. In aconite and arsenic there is agonizing pain, but in Rhus tox there is no agonizing pain, more of dull kind of pain. In arsenic, there is prostration, but not in Rhus Tox. In aconite, there is excitement, but not in Rhus Tox. Alright, so this is about the leading modalities of this remedy, the leading characteristic of this remedy, which are the modalities, okay? And here is the difference. They are, bryonia and Rhus Tox are completely opposite. Okay, let's move on to the second topic, which is about fevers or any kind of inflammatory diseases that this patient might go through. Okay. So, in fevers or any kind of inflammatory disease, the sensorium becomes cloudy, stupefaction sets in, plus there is low grade muttering delirium and a dry tongue. So now what is sensorium first of all? So sensorium is actually, it is actually we use this word to denote, that part of the brain or actually the mind, okay, which is concerned with the reception and interpretation of the sensory stimuli. So whatever sensory stimuli we are getting, okay, through all of our senses, we interpret that, right? We first of all we are first receptive to it, okay, we take it in and then we interpret it. Okay, all of that is done in a part of the brain or in your mind, which is called as sensorium. So it becomes cloudy, meaning that you're not able to take in the sensory information or whatever through your senses, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're tasting, or whatever you're not feeling, touching, like touch, the feel of touch. Okay, so whatever all those sensory information is not be, you're not able to take it, you're not able to interpret it. Okay, so it becomes cloudy basically. So you can understand that you're not in your in your alert kind of state now. And then stupefaction sets in. So this stupefaction means, actually again a condition where you're not able to think clearly. Maybe you have, because of this fever actually, so the sensorium is cloudy, so how will you be able to think, how will you be able to interpret? That is what. So because sensorium becomes cloudy, stupefaction will set in, and there will be low grade muttering delirium. Again, delirium is that kind of state, where you're not able to, think, you're not able to interpret, you're not able to comprehend. Okay, so that is a kind of delirium is a kind of state. Okay, mostly you see it in fever. So whenever somebody has very high fever, a state of fever for a long time, they will go into this delirium state where they will, keep muttering, meaning that they will just, keep making some sounds, talking about some words which are not very clear, or some absurd some absurd topic, or something which is not, which is weird. They will keep on muttering, they will keep on talking about it in a very different kind of sound voice. So that kind of low grade muttering delirium they have. Along with that they have dry tongue, okay, in Rhus Tox day. So this whole thing will set in when they will have fever, in Rhus Tox especially. Okay, this whole thing will set in. Now, the tongue of Rhus Tox is very characteristic. Okay, the tongue of Rhus Tox is very characteristic. Never ever forget about it. So this image I hope helps you remember it. So this triangular red tip tongue. Okay, triangular red tip tongue. It may be dry and dark coated, or dark coated also. So supposedly there can be dark coating over here, but there will be red tip, triangular red tip. So the tip of the tongue will be red, and this actually you can see in your patient. So whenever anybody of your friends, colleagues, relatives, anybody has cough, cold, fever, whatever, you can just check their tongue, and their tongue might be like this. And along with that, if they have restlessness, if they have this kind of state that we see in Rhus Tox, in which movement ameliorates them, rest aggravates them, then you can obviously think of Rhus Tox, and it will also help. Okay, all right. Then the stupefaction of Rhus is what we're going to talk about. So now Dr. Nash compares the stupefaction of Rhus Tox with the stupefaction of other remedies. Now, if you haven't studied about these remedies, you might not understand what he is actually talking about. But when you do study them, you'll understand how he beautifully compares these remedies. So he says that the stupefaction of Rhus Tox is not as profound as in high. So hyoscyamus and opium, both these remedies have, very, vivid kind of profound kind of stupefaction. Okay, they will have hyoscyamus belonging to the Solanaceae family, has a lot of fear. And opium has that state of painlessness. We've talked a little about it when we were talking about aconite. So these two remedies have actually a lot of a lot more profound stupefaction than Rhus Tox. On a parallel with Rhus Tox, the stupefaction of baptisia, nux moscata, lachesis, phosphoric acid is seen. Okay, so these remedies have kind of a stupefaction like that of Rhus Tox. But hyoscyamus and opium is, at a different level, not like Rhus Tox. Rhus Tox is not that. So now coming to delirium, delirium is not as violent as is seen in belladonna, hyos, and stramonium. These three remedies, belladonna, hyoscyamus, and stramonium, all these three belong to the Studanaceae family, where fear is the main factor. And even in the delirium, you will find them, talking a little bit about fear. Talking somewhere, it has to boil down to fear. So there is something about fear, and since there is fear, it has to be violent. Because of fear there'll come this violence, there'll be violence also. So that is what we see in these remedies. But in Rhus Tox there is no such violent delirium as such, but there is this low grade muttering kind of delirium. Alright, low grade muttering delirium. Now both stupefaction and delirium are mild in form but regular and persistent in Rhus Tox. So they are mild, as we've seen. They're not violent, they're not profound, but they're mild, but they will be regular and persistent. So in fever, in the chill stage, cough will be there. Okay, he mentions about it and tells us that this is a very very characteristic symptom, that there is cough during chill and intermittence, meaning intermittent fever. And this symptom was given to us by Carol Dunham, who is another doctor and is very reliable. That is what Dr. Nash says, that this symptom is very very reliable. I have had occasions to prove. So that is what Dr. Nash has also proved it in his own clinic, and saw the results when if there is cough during chill and intermittence, you have to think of Rhus Tox. The Rhus Tox has a characteristic symptom. Whenever you see a patient who has got this chill stage, okay, and along with the chill stage, he starts coughing. Now this is a very 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 characteristic indication for you to think of Rhus Tox, okay. You have to think of Rhus Tox. Then this cough is kind of dry, teasing cough, fatigue, meaning you will get exhausted due to the cough, great sensitiveness to open air. Putting the hand from under the bed cover brings on cough. Now this symptom is actually very characteristic in Hep self. That is, there is great sensitiveness to open air in Hep self, and they, even if they put their hand from under the bed cover, it will bring on cough. मतलब थोड़ा भी बाहर लेके गए हाथ ब्लैंकेट से, मतलब पूरा कवर कर लेते हैं वो ब्लैंकेट से अपने आप को, और थोड़ा भी if they take their hand out of the blanket, they will start coughing. So this is actually very very characteristic in Hep, but it is also seen in Baraita and Rhus Tox. On heat stage there is urticaria. So during heat there is urticaria, during chill there is cough. These are the two very very important things you have to remember about the fever of Rhus Tox. So next we talk about the action of Rhus Tox on muscles, on fibrous tissue, on cellular tissue. Okay, so what is the ailments from? What leads to problems in muscles or fibrous tissue or cellular tissue? So injury, basically straining. So whenever your muscles get strained, you have to think of Rhus. So Rhus Tox is a very 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 important remedy for strained muscles. Okay, straining, whenever the cause is straining. So you're doing yoga for the first time and you strained your muscle. Okay, you stretched it a lot. Okay, you strained it, or you're doing some stretching exercise, something like that. Okay, you strained your muscle, or you you just went and lift something very heavy. So heavy lifting, severe muscular exercise, or now see this, by exposure to cold or wet weather. So there's aggravation to cold, wet, especially wet weather. So damp weather. So since now also it is rainy season. So if someday what you do is, because there's this cold, wet kind of atmosphere, and you sleep on the damp ground, for example, okay, you sleep on a bed sheet which is not yet completely dried, okay, it is still damp, and you sleep on that, okay, then also you'll have issues. So you'll have back pain. If you have back pain after sleeping on the damp bed sheet, or you slept on the grass, like outside, after it stopped raining or whatever like that. Okay, so if there's damp, if you slept on something damp, your back starts aching, you have to give Rhus Tox. Movement ameliorates, aggravation from rest, all of that is there, you have to give Rhus Tox. Okay, so there is all these things. So Rhus Tox is one of our best remedies for lumbago. Lumbago is another term for backache, and it is very extensively used in our Materia Medica, so do not get confused, it just means backache. And it has action on muscles. So that is what it has actions on muscles of back and even the spinal membrane. So see, myelitis. So Rhus Tox not only has an action on the muscles, but also has action on the spinal membrane, that is myelitis. Okay, ailments from sprain, which is the same thing, sprain, strain, all of these things will be there. Exposure to exposure and sleeping on damp ground, which we have already talked about, on bed with damp sheets, getting wet in rain. Yeah, so right now it's it's because it's rainy season. You'll see, you'll have many of your relatives come to you and tell you that, I got wet in rain, and after that now my throat is paining or aching. So they'll have, or maybe they'll say that I have this coryza from the nose, watery nose or whatever. Maybe they'll just say that my whole body is aching. And yeah, you'll ask about what happened yesterday, maybe did you have ice cream or something. Then they will tell you that I got wet in rain. So getting wet in rain, and after that you have certain kind of complaints, or they storm and you have certain kind of complaints, especially while perspiring. So maybe you were doing a lot of hard exercise or something, work, right, physical exertion, and you were like perspiring, and after that you went out and you got wet in the rain. So that, especially that will give that giving rise to any kind of complaints, you can always think of Rhus Tox. Now there is a great characteristic in Rhus Tox. Dr. Nash also mentions this, okay, as and tells us that it is a very, very, very important thing. It is very, very characteristic. Great characteristic. Okay, great. So he says that there is lameness, stiffness, and pain on first moving after rest, on getting up in the morning, and led by continued motion. So it is nothing different. He is trying to tell us the same thing again and again because it is that important. It has to be that important for him to repeat it so many times. Again he says the same thing, that there is after rest, when the patient first moves, the pain, the stiffness, the lameness will get aggravated, and it will also get aggravated on getting up in the morning. It will get better by continued motion. Okay, so that was about muscles. In muscles, fibrous tissue, cellular tissue, he especially talks about the ailments from only. Yeah, and the other things actually we all know, so we have already discussed about. So ailments from was injury, strain due to straining, sprain. Okay, there can also be sprain, there can be heavy lifting that you have done, there can be severe muscular exercise that you have done, after which you get some kind of pain in your muscles, by exposure to cold wet weather, by sleeping on damp ground, on damp sheets, getting wet in rainstorm, especially when you are perspiring. And great characteristic as usual is, on first moving after rest there will be aggravation, on getting in the morning there will be aggravation and amelioration by continued motion. So now we come to the last topic that Dr. Nash explains, which is the action of Rhus Tox on skin, which is very, very interesting, because if you really study Rhus Tox in detail, if you Google about Rhus Tox, which is also called as poison ivy, you will find out that in many countries this Rhus Tox just grows anywhere, like by the side of the road, or anywhere here and there. Even if you don't plant it, okay, it will grow. And what happens is, if you pass, when you're passing through alongside of it, and you accidentally it just rubs on your skin, the leaves of this plant, poison ivy, Rhus Tox, it just rub off your skin, or you come in contact with this plant in any way, it will leave you with some kind of eruption, some kind of allergic reaction on your skin. Okay, so contact with this plant will give rise to some kind of skin manifestation, some kind of skin related symptoms, dermatological symptoms. So now, because it is like this in nature, obviously when we potentize this remedy, we're going to find its action on skin, because in nature also it has a kind of toxic effect on the skin. So it will cure skin conditions, because that is what our law of similia means. So what happens is, in action on skin, we'll understand what happens is that there is eruption of, see, now he also talks about the same thing, that there is rust poisoning, and there is eruption of this rust poisoning, which is vesicular, meaning that vesicles meaning what, vesicles are actually, these are actually such eruptions which contain fluid in them, okay, not pus. If they contain pus, they're called as pustular eruptions, okay, pustules. But here it is vesicles. Vesicles means they have just a kind of fluid in them, and therefore they look like dewdrop, like they will look like dewdrops, because there is kind of fluid and they are very small. Okay, so they're, see, they will look like this, like, if you actually should see it in real on your patients, okay, and then you'll actually understand how it looks. But it is like small, and it will have fluid filled inside of it, so somewhat like this. And you should remember this image to remember how it looks, okay. Some small eruptions, and they will contain fluid in them, and look, they will exactly look like a dewdrop. So that will be seen in Rhus tox, okay. Erysipelas of vesicular variety. Again, erysipelas is like cellulitis, and along with that there is vesicles along with that present. So that is why erysipelas of vesicular variety. Vesicles is something that you have to remember. It is important. Okay, and then there is, along with that there is restlessness, and again there is, again along with that there is restlessness. There is this and the sensorium of this remedy, meaning whatever we talked about sensorium has to be there. Okay, so what did we talk about sensorium? That the sensorium will become cloudy, right? That the patient will go into, a stupefaction, go into low grade muttering delirium, and there will be dry tongue. So all of that kind of sensorium will be present. Restlessness will be present. Along with that, this vesicular eruptions, that is dewdrop like eruptions, will be present. Now, if in variola, which is smallpox, eruption turns livid and typhoid symptoms supervene, then Rhus cures. So typhoid, it is also a great remedy for typhoid. So if you have smallpox, which is again a dermatological condition, and along that also you have typhoid, so both of these come under the action of Rhus tox, and Rhus tox will cure. Also, it is helpful in herpes zoster, which is again another dermatological condition. Also in eczema, which is a condition characterized by dryness of skin. In eczema also, the eczema will be of vesicular type, much itching and not ameliorated by scratching. So there will be a lot of itching that these patients feel, but how much ever they scratch, it will not get ameliorated. That is what we talked about skin. So in skin, the most important point that you have to remember is the vesicular eruptions, okay, the dewdrop like eruptions that you have to remember. So that's all about this remedy. Let's just revise very quickly. We've seen that, first of all, we've talked about the restlessness of this remedy, right? And when we were talking about the restlessness of this remedy, we saw that this restlessness comes due to two important things, that is aching pain and soreness, and internal uneasiness, which they already have. And we've seen that mental restlessness is more in aconite and arsenic rather than in Rhus tox. We've seen that in Rhus tox what happens is that this patient keeps on moving, and this movement will ameliorate his symptoms also. It will not only be something that he does because he wants to do. Yeah, he wants to do it because he wants to do it, but there is a good consequence, that they will feel better, that their symptoms will get relieved because of that movement. And then we've seen that in bryonia we saw that the movement will give rise to aggravation of symptoms, but in Rhus tox it ameliorates, and rest will ameliorate in bryonia, but it will aggravate in Rhus tox. Okay, movement will be like something that they want to do. In Rhus tox it will ameliorate also, but aggravation is from rest. Then we also talked about how it is in acute and how it is in chronic. And then we saw that how the pain of this remedy is very beautifully compared with aconite and arsenic by Dr Nash. And then finally comes to fevers, where he talks about the very important thing, that is the sensorium of this remedy, which we have revised also along with the skin. When we're talking about the skin, that there's a sensorium which is cloudy, low grade muttering delirium, etc. The tongue is very important that you need to remember. The tongue has this red triangular tip. It may be dry also, it may be dark coated also, but the tongue has this triangular red tip in Rhus tox. Right? In Rhus tox, the stupefaction and the delirium are very mild in form, but they will be regularly present and persistently present. Okay, then we saw the chill and heat stage. So in chill stage, we have to remember that there is cough present in chill stage of Rhus tox. So if they start shivering, if they start feeling chills, then there should be cough along with it, and you have, the first remedy that comes to your mind should be Rhus tox. Then in heat stage, there is urticaria. right? Then we came on to talk about the muscles of this remedy, in which we saw that the sprain or strain is there. Okay, whenever you do a lot of exercise and your muscle gets sprained, get strained, that time you have to think of this remedy: severe muscular exercise, exposure to cold wet weather, sleeping on damp floor, damp sheets, getting wet in rain, storm, and especially when you're perspiring. All of these will give rise to lameness, stiffness, and pain. Lameness, stiffness, and pain. Now this lameness, stiffness, and pain will be aggravated on first movement, right? Will be aggravated from rest and ameliorated by continued motion. Then we talked about the action on skin, in which the most important point is about the vesicular eruptions that this remedy has. Vesicular meaning dewdrop like of kind of eruptions, which are small eruptions, and along with that there is fluid present in those eruptions. Okay, so that is how we complete talking about the about this remedy Rhus Tox, and hence also complete talking about our trio of restlessness by Dr. Nash. I hope you learned through this through these we I hope you learned through these video series about the trio of restlessness, about the various trios that we're going to talk about. We've already done the digestive remedies by Dr. Nash, and we'll be continuing with some other trios also. Okay, so thank you. I hope you learned, and I hope you go back and read it from Dr. Nash's Materia Medica. Bye bye.